Quick disclaimer, we're going to do this in English for the
True,
second,
yeah, totally.
yes, for the second discussion, in a very intimate setting once again, which helps us, hopefully, to get into more personal questions as well, or more personal topics regarding entrepreneurship. We have Barbara Lax here. Welcome, Barbara, founder and CEO of Little Green House. Once again, I just give a quick recap of your venture. You founded Little Greenhouse in 2011, innovative childcare group with 13 houses.
Yes. Yeah.
At the moment, so it's growing. It's growing quite significantly. The idea is to support a new generation of parents, also to combine career with family, something we all struggle with sometimes, and you provide a solution to that, as well as providing the children with special education with solid roots, you say, for a successful living in the future. You studied civil engineering. You hold a master's degree in numerical methods in engineering, something that surprised me a bit because it's completely out of your current job.
Totally.
And before launching your own business, you have been working for Caterpillar.
Yes.
And being an engineer, and how you made that transition from that job to your current job, venture, or even I think it's more than just a job or a venture. It's something you live with your all day long. We're going to discuss that as well, and just maybe you got prizes as well for your ventures. The Veuve Clicquot Business Woman of the Year Award 2017. Maybe we can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
What that helped in in your venture and in whatever you're doing. Barbara, as with the first talk, I would like to start a little bit philosophical and a little bit let's put the bar very high already. You once quoted Kierkegaard in an interview. You said, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards.
Yes, yeah.
How does that translate to your venture, to your company?
Well, in various dimensions, I would say, because it's really about, if you look at my, way, like my development, it looks very...
The journey, so to speak.
Journey, exactly. It looks very opportunistic, and it was, in a way, but I think each step helps you define a bit more who you are and what's your purpose, or at least that's for me. I mean, I didn't have like that one calling, I was just like, I knew I wanted to be independent, I wanted to be able to work and live in other countries, and I like to do something with my maybe talents or with my rigor that actually helps me to achieve a certain level. That's why I chose civil engineering, and I wanted to do something that you can touch and see. And then, one thing came to the other. I was able to go to Lausanne, to the EPFL. I was able to go to Barcelona to do the second master. It was very opportunistic, and it wasn't because I was passionate about numerical methods, but because I wanted to go to Barcelona, and they offered me that work, and then I started working, and I had the choice of staying in research or starting in a big company. And I love to travel, I like people, and so I chose to go with Caterpillar, international company, traveling, lots of opportunity to learn about the world. That was also my idea. I want to understand how the world is working. And and then there I learned a lot. I was in finance, I was in marketing, I was in strategy, I was in sustainable development. And then I just was lacking that impact. I was working every day. I liked my colleagues. I had a fantastic, well-paid job. But
something was missing.
Yeah, totally. Because I saw people retiring. They disappeared. Nobody took on their job. One of my friends actually died. I wanted to help him take on his role because it was like a big illness, and I wanted to just help him to give his legacy to somebody else in the company. He was in tunneling. And they wouldn't let me, and so he died without being able to give, hand over his customer contacts, all his knowledge. It's so sad, So some things like that happened where I was like, I don't want to die like that. I don't want to waste my time. Okay, I'm like in a golden cage because I have all those possibilities. I have, more money than I can spend, but I don't do anything useful with my time. And that got amplified when I had my daughter, because I really wanted to be like that role model, and I was convinced that you can also have a career and a family and you can do it the best way. But when you just go to your job and you do something that kind of makes a pay, or it wasn't enough. So going back to Kierkegaard, I think I don't know, I mean, now today in my role I combine so many things. I do construction, I do project management, I do sustainability, I do strategy, I do marketing, all these things I
Finance as
learn.
well. Yeah.
Finance, of course, exactly. And then at the same time I do something like I construct also, we actually construct childcares as well. So it's very tangible and you can see the impact, and it unites people from different cultures and different backgrounds. And so it's kind of everything I wanted, but in a very different way than I would have thought. And
It just struck me when you talk about how about that journey.
Yeah.
We often speak about purpose now with the younger generation,
Yes, yeah.
but it's something that was obviously very
Yes.
important to you as well.
Yeah.
Finding your calling, or really finding a sense of why am I going to work
Yeah.
every day. So in
Yes.
that regard, when quoting Kierkegaard or whoever, saying that a journey is something that should be kind of, for you as well to learn about something about yourself.
Yes.
Is that an important part of an entrepreneur as you see it as well?
I
Developing.
totally see it like that today, but because I guess I'm also more like, as an entrepreneur, you need to develop yourself so much. You need to learn so many things. Especially, I don't have like any entrepreneur in my family. I come from a big company, so I don't know how it works. So I had to learn so many things. So you also need to work on yourself. So then you start asking yourself those questions. Why I'm doing the things I'm doing, why I did the decisions I did, how does it all fit together, and then it's of course nice when you actually can make some sense for yourself as well, because then that helps you going forward as well. But I think what really drove me in the decision was this very big, it was more of a gut feeling, it was like, I wasn't happy because I felt like I was wasting my time, and then suddenly I had this idea, and it was like falling in love, it was like, oh my God, I just want to do this, and I just want to find a way. So I was starting playing the lottery and stuff, just to being able to quit my job. So in the end, I didn't win in the lottery. So I was just continuing doing my job and financing the startup at the same time. But I think it's what I did, at least. I mean, I was just really following that gut feeling. It got so strong.
Would you say you were almost obsessed with that idea?
Totally, yeah. This feeling got so strong that, and it wasn't the feeling, it was a feeling that if I don't do this now, I will regret it for the rest of my life. And I just imagined myself like dying and then asking myself, what would I regret the most?
Okay.
And I really thought I would probably regret the most that I don't do it now, even though I knew that I will have less money, I will have crazy hours, I don't know anything, I will have lots of criticism and so on, but I still needed to do it. Yeah, it was an obsession.
An obsession which comes with pain as well, and with challenges. And you were very open about these hard times as well.
Yes.
If we can just maybe take away some learnings for us all. For example, as you said, I mean, you were working full time.
Yeah.
You had a family. And then you have that dream, and you have that calling, as you say. I mean, you were probably overburdening yourself, no?
Yeah, totally.
And in hindsight, what was the problem? Was it all too much? Didn't you want to let go of something, or can you give us more of an insight about that?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I guess some things now I'm aware of, and I learned that I can do differently now. I mean, at the time, basically, I threw myself out there, but I also didn't have any support in my environment. So, people were like, are you crazy? You have this well-paid job that you actually enjoy, and lots of security, and now you have this baby, and now you want to do a startup in a social area, which is like totally doesn't make sense. You're an engineer, and are you crazy?
And just to be precise, that
So
isn't just colleagues, but that was
no,
also your family.
especially family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially family. I mean, then also they were scared, of course. For me, I was scared as well. But then I wasn't allowed to being able to even. And I think that that's one of the things that you're not even allowed to think of a negative scenario, because then you need to auto motivate yourself so much that you only can. You idealize it a lot more because you need to, keep yourself going. And then you also need to play a role with the external environment, because if I go to see banks or like landlords, or I can't just tell them, I have no clue what I'm doing. Actually, I have this safe job. I have never been an entrepreneur. So you need to act like this role that you totally know what you're doing. And that's what you learn in a big company, to kind of sell an idea and do this very professionally, have some nice slides and a nice business plan, stuff like that. So what I think I did totally overburn myself. Things got very complicated. I put all my money in. I even put our house on on guarantee for the banks.
So you went all in.
I went totally all in, and then things didn't work out the way I thought. The childcare didn't fill up as much. We had much more HR costs. The first director left and deleted all the data. It was a total total disaster. Losing lots of money. I didn't have anymore. I emptied all our accounts. Sometimes my credit card was so over, indebted that I needed to, like at the supermarket, really try different cards and find solutions and stuff. So it was really very, very stressful. And I went all into the stress as well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's my biggest learning, that you can actually manage your stress. I mean, then of course externally seen is like total horror, you might lose, when I didn't sleep, I was imagining, losing everything, the house, the family, not finding a job anymore, becoming homeless. It's just what you do when you are under so much stress. And
we're talking about a long time here. That wasn't just 2-3 weeks or months.
No, it was. There was like a very big moment. There was like maybe 2 months where it was really, really bad. And then luckily I found help. I was working with a friend of mine who's a coach, who then actually introduced me to the concept of positive deviance. So that's an idea where you look into data, so my life data, and look at things that are actually working and focus on that. And so then that's one of the things I learned, So I think I learned to manage my energy, to pay attention when you don't sleep one night, that you make sure you sleep the next night. I was thinking I'm immortal, I can go with 3 hours of sleep forever. Just stressing out more and more and more. So that kind of turned my way of looking at things, and I quickly saw that besides all those people that I had hired that were super stressed out about my own stress, there were actually some that were really ready to take on also some responsibility with me, and to just being allowing them to take over and to take on and to just do their best and trust that they can actually do that better than me at that moment, where I was so obsessed with my fear, so totally not functioning anymore. I think that was my biggest learning, and from then on I think I always replicated that, that trusting that people can actually do a better job than yourself, and at the same time managing your own fear and your own stress in terms of sleep, just caring for yourself. I was always thinking I'm super endurant and tough, and I don't need to sleep, I don't need to eat, because I can do things, and actually to do the opposite, to take really good care of yourself. I think that's a big thing.
That's such an important point, and you speak very impressively about it and very open about it, that you reached a point where you say, I just literally couldn't get out of bed. I needed help. I had my daughter to take care of, and the moment where you realize I have to ask for help, even people who weren't maybe that supportive, and then you call your mother and you say, please help me, and she helped you. And that realization that sharing responsibility can be a good thing. How does that help you in your entrepreneurship or also in your company?
It helps me every day, because
it's crucial, right?
Yes, it's crucial. That experience, that's the biggest thing that will help you, to be transparent, to be open, to be vulnerable. also with your team to share. I mean, you shouldn't scare them, but they should feel that you have honest intentions and that you are very honest and credible. And I think that that's also one of the strengths in our organization. It's like a I would say joint resilience, because we went through so much and we share it, we talk about it. When we have new employees, we tell our story, we tell how hard it was in the beginning. Each site opening is a total nightmare each time, because there's always something that doesn't work well. There's authorities, there's all those things you need to figure out. There's always something that goes wrong. But you need to just know that it goes right. And so I think that, yeah, asking for help, also people that maybe, yeah, maybe you're too proud to ask, or maybe you think, I don't think that will work. It does miracles. It totally does miracles, yeah.
How do you deal with that on a let's say on a leadership level? Because I mean, empathy is very important.
Yes, yeah.
On the other side, you lead a very successful business with hundreds of employees by now. I mean, you have to be a boss as well. Is that difficult for you sometimes to kind of distinguish the two roles? It's not a family; it is a business, right?
Yeah, that's true, and I think there's also some saying that it's not so good to call a business a family, because that also cuts away the line where people are allowed to, and should be allowed and should give the priority to their own family. But still, a lot of our employees actually call it the Little Green House family, which is nice. And because we are in that family business, kind of, it makes sense. But I try to not use the phrase. So for me, it was like I tried to understand what can help me. So I read books, and I did all kinds of like podcasts and things, just to understand ideas. And there was two ideas that really helped me. One was the idea of holacracy. So that is the concept where you say people don't have like a hierarchical responsibility and you need to ask your boss and this and that, but you actually have a role, and you can have several roles, and your role is very clearly defined. It's not the person, it's the role. And then you define the boundaries, and then you have those interactions with the different roles and different groups of roles. But then you also can very fast adapt those roles and those systems. And that's how we work. So we don't people are always irritated if they say, yeah, but who's that person's boss? And I'm like, no, there is no boss. She has this role, or he has this role. Yeah, and then we have all the systems in place that if it doesn't work, then we figure it out. And so it's of course possible to exchange people and so on, but it works differently. It's not like then there is a boss who helps with that decision, but it's really about roles. So that was very helpful. And then it's very decentralized as well, because each of the site manager is actually running the site like, I would say, her or his own business, like a franchise. And we just support them, and we make sure that they understand what their boundaries, their KPIs are, and so on. But they do all the decisions. They hire the people, they fire the people, they have their budget, they allocate the things as they need, because they do a much better job than anybody else would. You can't manage 13 sites from the top. And the second idea or book that really helped me was the Gewaltfreie Organisation. It's from Amy Edmondson. It's not gewaltfrei, the Fearless Organization, it's called. Yeah. And that is about basically when you are transparent and when you have kind of installed that growth mindset, that you can actually learn from your mistakes, and that mistakes can really be a good teacher, and that everybody on the learning, and when you want to do something new, you actually do mistakes because that's part of what you do. And also talk openly, be vulnerable, talk about what you don't do well.
Okay. That can be liberating.
You create an environment where people feel free and safe to try things, to be open about what doesn't work. Yeah. And that also helps people to take on responsibility. Yeah. It takes away the fear. So it's I think those two ideas really help in the dynamics, because we do have a big team now. Yeah.
Of course. When we speak about fear, let's go back to one fear of the founding days.
Yeah.
And that struck me as something incredible. When you decided, okay, we're going to do the first site
Yes.
in Gland, I think
Yeah,
that was,
yeah.
you signed a lease, you signed an agreement for 10 years,
Yeah.
and 4 days later, the bank, which was supposed
Yes.
to finance, to fund the whole
Yeah.
thing, just withdrew. Just, said from one day to the other, oh, I'm sorry, we can't finance you.
Yes, exactly.
Can, can you talk about that experience?
Yeah.
Because I can imagine that must have been one of the biggest shocks in the history of your company. Right?
Yes, yeah, one of, but there were several,
Yeah.
but there was one, like there was, I think in a weekly basis there was like horrible news like that, but there was one of, and I still remember, I was like I was doing a presentation for Caterpillar in Munich, and I was in this sports shop trying on ski boots, and I remember that I got that call from that bank guy, and it was such an absurd thing to be in those ski boots and to talk with this guy, and in the beginning I didn't understand what he meant, and he's like, sorry, but I told you that it's gonna be fine, but now our management says it's too risky, and I was just like frozen, and I couldn't call anybody. I couldn't like call anybody because everybody would have told me, are you crazy? I mean, how can
I
you?
told you so.
I told you so. And so I just like the next day, I just called all the banks I had already been in touch with. And then there was the Alternativbank Schweiz. They had a special program, luckily, and they were very strict and they were very painful in terms of all the things they asked, and they didn't give me all the money I needed. So that was also the start of the stress, because then I just had to do with less. I had no choice. And then I had to do the guarantee on the house and stuff. That was all not planned before. But then of course I would have signed anything, So that was, I luckily that then developed, and I couldn't tell anybody about it. So I was totally isolated with that fear.
Yeah.
And again, I couldn't, I still remember, because I actually met my parents in Munich, and I couldn't tell anybody what's actually happening, So because
That's incredible, because that eats you up, right? If you can't really
kills
share
you.
what.
Yeah.
Did you, in regards of financing the whole thing and looking for funding?
Yeah.
How did you deal with it? How did you find the money in the end? Because it wasn't just the Alternativbank, but you had to have the finances set up. And maybe as a second question, would you do something differently in hindsight, maybe 10, 15 years later?
Yeah, I definitely would do a lot of things differently, that's for sure. Basically, I came with this big company mindset, with a big salary. I had some money put aside. I did a business plan that was very optimistic, because I had to convince myself, that it's gonna work. And things didn't work out that way, so my money was gone very fast, and the money of the bank was gone very fast as well. And then it was a pure survival. And at the same time, I was contacted by external investors, because it is a business that interests a lot of investors. And
it's a boom at the moment.
Yeah, it was already then, I guess. I mean, there's all these big groups from France that wanted to go into the Swiss market, because the Swiss market was just like promising to them, because they also don't understand the dynamics really in detail. So like, oh my God, you can ask such a big price from the parents, that must be super profitable, and so on. So there was this French childcare group that contacted me, and I would have sold my grandmother. I mean, I would have done anything that they, they come on board. And so I sold 50% of the shares to them, and I was very, very happy about that, because they came in with loans, and they came in and helped me to just get back on track, but they actually didn't understand, I guess, the whole situation when they came on board. And they were very fast, very disappointed about, I guess, the losses that we continued to make. And it was always a struggle, because even though they were in childcare, they didn't understand also the quality and the ideas I had, and that needed time. And they actually wanted to resell to a bigger group, or to a fund, or grow themselves very, very big. And so I helped them also to develop their business in Germany, in Serbia, in different countries. And then they wanted to sell everything, and I didn't want. I didn't want that. I wanted Little Green House to stay independent, especially then when I started to understand how they're actually thinking, functioning, and it's really mainly about the benefit that you can make, and not so much about what you can long term create. You know, in terms of the vision, in terms of the growth, but also, you know,
I mean, what
the
you're
innovation.
explaining, isn't that the struggle or the challenge for a lot of startups, that, you know, people come in who don't really understand how much you are committed and how much you are invested. Also, you know, from your own persona, and you know, that dilemma between, it's not a business for me, it is it is a vocation, it is a dream.
Yeah. I guess it's maybe also, I mean, you know, I was really under so much pressure. I did so many mistakes, and I think that was also what I would do differently. I would grow the business much slower, much more careful, do different scenarios, spend much more time looking for money from banks. And I did this all next to my day job, you know. I did this, and I'm a risk taker, you know, so I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's gonna be fine. I'm an optimist, you know, I'm an engineer. Engineers are always experimenting, they're trying out stuff, you know. It's like, yeah, let's try it. But I would do it very differently, much more thorough, much more, you know, thought through, calculated, safety network, things like that, that I could have built up from the start, and then not taking in any investors ever. Because I really think, especially for me, I guess for me, yeah, there is this, it doesn't match, you know. I want actually, so my vision is that Little Green House belongs to itself, and that on the long term, everything that we actually develop goes back to all the employees, and not as somebody external that sees the potential growth and whatever, you know. But at that moment, of course, I was in a very different situation, and I also didn't understand the impact of it. I didn't think it through, and I maybe also sold an idea that wasn't entirely, maybe I made them also hear what they wanted to hear, you know. So, I mean, then I changed the investors. It was also a very stressful story, because they wanted to sell me, and I was luckily advised by an investment banker who said, you just need to refuse to talk to any buyer. And that will save you, because nobody will buy you in a hostile way when the founder doesn't even want to, you know. And so that's what I did. I didn't even answer the phone. Well, yeah, again, you take a lot of risk, because they threatened me. They told me, look, we're going to dilute you, you know, you still have all those debts, we're going to increase the capital, you have no more money, so then you're going to be minority shareholder, and either you accept our offer or we just do it. And so I needed to just trust that what I'm doing, not answering the phone, not, you know, not talking to anybody, will help. And it did help. I mean, they then sold everything else besides me. Or besides Little Green House, and then luckily I found some investors that are very, very different in terms of their thinking, and they are much more for the long term, and they understand the idea that Little Green House becomes independent in the long term, and so that is a very different story now.
How much does success help in that matter? You know, it's often the case that successful businesses, entrepreneurs like yourself, you know, 10 years later, that they say, and now they respect me more because of my success, but I'm literally the same person. And you know, you could have shown me that feeling 10 years ago, but now it's just they see you as an successful company or a successful, you know, entity, but you're basically still the same person. Isn't that kind of a dilemma as well?
Not so much with the investors, because I think that they see everything, you know, they also see the difficulties, and maybe they saw me differently in a different way before. And I think that all my idealism, my strive for doing things differently is maybe not something that is very helpful for them. But what really helps in this respect is my relationship with the authorities, with the maybe also politics, you know. Nobody took me seriously at all when I knocked at their doors and said, look, I want to open this childcare center, I'm an engineer, what are the regulations? Can you help me? Can you give me some advice? They're like, we don't have time for you. Go home, just do engineering. It's a nice job, and leave us alone. We have enough problems. So that was like, wow, this is.
Did they actually tell you that, or did you hear it
no,
from?
verbally,
Okay.
like word by word. And that was in the canton of Vaud, and then in the canton of Geneva, they didn't even meet me at all. They're like, we're not talking to people like you.
Yeah.
And so that is tough. And now I'm actually invited on their roundtables when it gets talking about new policies. I get calls from people that were sent by them to talk with me when they want to open a structure or stuff. And we're often presented as the example, and that's nice, of course. It's good for the ego.
That would have been my next question. How do you deal with that? Now you're often described as kind of a trailblazer, also a role model, being a successful female, kind of a out of the box entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Do you like that role, or do you think you're kind of put in some kind of box again, where where they keep talking about you as that and maybe you're so many other things as well?
No, I do like it. I like that role. I like to be seen as the trailblazer, kind of the rebel, the person that doesn't give up, and that also can do many different things. That is kind of a toughie, you know. Of course, you're always so many things, but I think it's nice to to have the respect. But then, of course, it's always like in all the businesses, people, they only see the success. There's also a lot of things that don't go right, and then I often feel like, should I say that actually it's not that great? It's like better than it was, but it's still tough, or should I just like kind of use that image and do something with it. So I think you always need to, and again, I think you need to always be authentic and also be vulnerable and talk about the things that don't work, because otherwise it's not the real story. So yeah.
Do you feel that we lack, as we sometimes hear, we lack that kind of business thinking as well, that failing isn't bad. It's something that we always hear. In the US, it's probably kind of pushed a little bit too far, that you must have failed 4 times or 5 times before being successful. But you, as you say, you share your stories, you share your struggles, you share your difficulties. Is that not done enough here? Do we have a kind of are we too risk averse or too scared to be able to say, yes, I failed, or yes, I made mistakes?
Yeah. Yes is the short answer. I think we are too risk adverse. I think it's a mindset question. What also helped me is that book from Carol Dweck, Mindset. It talks about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So the fixed mindset is that you just think that you're born with a certain level of talent and intelligence, and then you just have to do the best with it because that's what you have, and there's nothing else you can kind of get, and that's who you are. And so those people are afraid to try something new or make mistakes because they always feel like, oh my God, now people see that I'm maybe not as clever as they think I am, or what would people say, and that is a proof that things go when something goes wrong. And I did have that fixed mindset growing up. I come from a small Catholic traditional village in Bavaria where everybody knows everybody and everybody has an opinion of everybody. And I knew you when you were small and you were always like this, so obviously it doesn't work. I could have told you before. So that's kind of the fixed mindset. And the growth mindset, I think it's a very American thing also, and I learned that also at Caterpillar. It's about, hey, let's just try it, let's experiment, and we'll learn from it, and we'll do it better next time. And we can actually become better, we can even become more intelligent, we can just grow. That's a growth mindset. And I do think that in Switzerland there is a lot of the fixed mindset, and I think it helps when you go somewhere else. I would have never ever become an entrepreneur in my hometown, ever. That would have paralyzed me, just, all those opinions and this legacy from the family and where you come from. And when you just go somewhere else, you can just reinvent yourself, and you can do that multiple times. I moved multiple times, and I think that also helps. And then you need to understand, like when in the beginning when things went wrong, I thought, okay, that's a proof that I'm a bad entrepreneur. I should have listened to everybody else
Yeah.
and just stayed in my safe
So
job.
you were stuck in that mindset
Totally.
as well.
I was, and I mean, I still kind of work on that all the time, to come on, I mean, and I think that that's a very big thing for entrepreneurs, and I think it's important to be open about what doesn't go well. I think it makes you more credible, and it helps everybody else. I sometimes feel so intimidated by those pep talks, also from other entrepreneurs, and I feel so, like a loser or like a beginner or like, and I think it's just because I never learned that language, kind of.
Have you ever thought of opening a new site in your Bavarian hometown just to show them?
I know, because then there would always be something that goes wrong, and it would be so much pressure. I think, no, but in Germany maybe. Generally, going to Germany maybe,
Okay. Maybe there are some questions or comments. So we do have a microphone. If you have something to contribute, please. Oh yeah, we do have a question here. So now we put on the the headphones.
Thank
there
you.
You go.
You mentioned before, and as far as I understood, you use holacracy as an organizational form, right? There are some positive aspects, but there are also negative aspects on this organizational form. What did you experience?
So we are inspired by holacracy, but I don't do it like by the book, So what we apply, and I think because we took this on very early on, it's not like we changed something, but it's something that has been from the start, because I had to delegate responsibilities very fast. I wouldn't say there's any negative aspects to it, because we do have an executive committee that still, looks at the big picture. So it's not totally decentralized, everything. So the things we took on really help us, and I wouldn't say there's any negative aspect to it. The only thing is that external people like investors, or they sometimes don't understand if I say doesn't have a supervisor. Yeah, but who's doing the performance review? We don't do performance reviews. We do direct feedback, and then we do growth discussions, and then we do those together, and we allocate our resources together. So it's not. I think it's just the external people that don't understand it.
Yes, please.
Your story, Barbara, very inspiring. You said before that you were isolated in your fears when the bank withdrew that funding guarantee for the first site. And I mean, we know as entrepreneurs it's quite often very lonely, the journey. Who do you have to share your deepest fears and struggles? What environment? Do you have friends or your family or coach, or what is your environment to share these deep fears?
It's definitely better now, so I'm not so isolated anymore, because also I guess the visibility, success, growth and so on has also converted some people, and now they're also believing in it, and so they see, okay, we can actually talk about problems as well, because it also shows that at the basis it works. So that helps me to talk more now with friends and maybe even family a bit, but I don't really share very big concerns. I don't really share much. I think my team, like the executive committee, is a big part of it, because I really want them to carry this together. So, because I also want Little Green House to continue to belong to itself. So it's really about managing to communicate my fears in a way that they can hear it and that it's not so threatening to them, and then finding solutions with them. It's really about that.
But having said that, does fear ever go away, or does
No.
it, with the growth of a company, do the problems get bigger, and can you ever get used to,
Yes.
feeling that fear? But
yes.
It's still there, right?
It's still there, and but I think I'm aware now when I feel it sometimes when I'm talking with a colleague and I realize, oh my God, he or she doesn't really understand the impact of a decision on the budget, and I would have expected that person to understand. Then of course, the fear suddenly gets so strong, and then I need to manage myself to manage my response, to not say what I'm thinking, but actually, okay, now I'm really scared, I feel it. I need to work on that medium term to make sure I educate better that person, but also maybe everybody else. That just to be aware of what you're actually feeling and then reacting in a good way, that helps a lot, because otherwise, if you react out of fear, that does a lot of harm. Yeah.
But there's a difference between fear and vulnerability, and I think that's something you bring across very well. You don't have to be afraid of being vulnerable, also for your company, right? And that's something I think we're lacking sometimes as well.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I think so too. But I think fear, you need to be able to manage. You need to realize it and then manage it and not pass it on. Yeah. Because you're not doing a good job when you're afraid. So you need to, you have those moments. I have those moments. I can feel it. I'm scared.
So there's the stomach ache again.
Yes, totally.
As you had,
yeah, but they are getting less, and I realize them, and then I pay attention to not communicate in that moment, because that can go wrong. Yeah.
Very interesting. Do you have some more questions or maybe comments also, how you deal with all these difficult moments as well? Not for the moment. What's your long-term view? Where do you want this company to go? Where do you want to go yourself? Do you have do you have a 10, 20, 30-year plan?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so I do work a lot on where do I want to go, how should it look like, what should Little Green House become. So on the one hand, I think we have developed a unique concept that we can also scale, maybe not only through childcare themselves, but actually by applying the concept, for example, virtually to different groups, educators, parents, things like that. Maybe schools of educators, maybe in other countries. But then also scaling Little Green House itself, maybe through franchising or maybe through, growth by ourselves. In the end, at some point it can become exponential, because now we have built a solid base that we can now scale from there. And I see for Little Green House to stay independent. So I don't know if you know the Purpose Schweiz, so Purpose organization. I work with them to define how Little Green House can stay independent, maybe through creating a foundation where I define how the benefits will be used again for all the employees, and not just some so there will not be partners or anything like that.
So that is a clear learning from the founding days.
Exactly, totally. Because I realize now that it is a job where everybody really, on a very idealistic level, gives their best for a very unattractive salary, conditions, and it's not rewarded as much as it should be. And I don't see that should be other people making profit out of it than actually the people working there themselves. And that's the best way to grow such a business on the long term and be profitable. And be more profitable and more competitive and higher quality than anybody else. Because if it goes back to the business, then there's a very different motivation for people than if they just work for some external owners, I think. And so that's for me the big objective, and that's something it's not very known yet, that you can actually, it's still like, you still work to be profitable, you still of course be there for the long term. You can still have, you can sell your shares, you don't have to donate them. It's still about also making money, but you make sure that the long-term ownership is steward ownership, basically. And the people that are linked to the business are the ones that own the business and have also the saying, the decision-making, the power. And I think that's a very, very interesting concept.
So you can honestly say you're still in it for the idea, for the purpose, and not for the money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also it's not like I say I donate everything because I put so much in, but I don't need to optimize that aspect, Of course,
you still don't want to be sold.
No, totally not. Exactly. No, I really want this to stay independent, and I'm very happy to do a lot of sacrifices for that, also money-wise.
Yeah.
And I for that is really my next big project, and I think it will take the next 10 years to get there. And then I'm also happy because I also combine it still with being in the construction business, and I'm on some boards in the construction area, and so, you know, it's still like I can balance my passions, and that also helps me to sometimes take a step back and to live kind of in two worlds. I like
But
that. Yeah.
As you know, I can feel it, and probably everyone can feel it too, that there's still a lot of passion
Yeah.
also for what's to come. Maybe one last look, if we have one last question or not. If not, I would have one. You know, as we often do, we ask for takeaways or biggest learnings. If I asked you for, let's start with the negative, the worst aspect of being an entrepreneur and your journey, and then to finish up on a high note, what's the best thing?
So the worst thing was in my whole journey was really that moment in the beginning where I was running out of money, and I realized I was totally too idealistic, optimistic, and not very analytical.
Gullible, trustworthy as well, all that.
Yeah,
right?
everything.
Yeah.
So, and then also jumping into the fear and not sleeping and stuff like that. So that was like the biggest mistake, the biggest, most horrible moments in my entrepreneurial life. And the best, I think it's yet to come, but it's starting, you know, because I mean, you can now, there is more and more freedom, there is more and more impact, you know, people are actually listening to us now, we have a certain size, and we are there already since a while, and there is so much coming back now, and that is making me very happy, you know, not only on an individual level from employees and from the families, but also from the whole environment, from politics, from the communes, from I don't know, also those, you know, that it's nice that I'm invited here. I mean, so that is also making me very happy. Yeah.
Very good. We wish you all the best for the future endeavors and for your company. Thank you very much, Barbara Lax.
Thank you.
Thank you.